Welcome to the Historical Romance Sampler Podcast. I'm your host, Katherine Grant, and each week I introduce you to another amazing historical romance author. My guest reads a little sample of their work, and then we move into a free-ranging interview. If you like these episodes, don't forget to subscribe to the Historical Romance Sampler wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Now, let's get into this week's episode.
I'm very excited to be joined today by R.K. Harrington to celebrate her debut romance, Kindred Schemes. R.K. grew up reading romance novels at maybe too young an age, and the stories entranced her and have held on to her ever since. When she's not writing or reading or working her day job as an engineer, she is having fun with her husband, their kids, and their very cute dog. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, Catherine, thank you so much for having me.
I'm super excited. I love a debut romance, and I love in your blurb, there's a little bit of a teaser that there's some Duke versus Marquess love triangle stuff going on, which reminds me of my own debut where there's a Duke versus an Earl love triangle going on. So I'm excited. It's called Kindred Schemes, and I feel like we have kindred books, so I'm excited to hear about it.
Yeah, excited to share it with you.
So what should we know about the book and the scene that you're going to read?
Okay, so I'm going to read The Meet Cute, which is probably one of my favorite parts of any romance novel. And it is going to set up the love triangle in the first chapter. So before the scene, Lady Elena, who's having a rough start to her season, and then you meet Christopher and Graham. Christopher is a Marquess, Graham is the Duke, and you can tell that they're best friends, so you get that dynamic. And then we move into this second chapter where essentially Elena meet the both of them, and then that kind of sets things off.
Awesome.
Yeah, the book, I really like to add a decent amount of mystery in there too. So it's romance plus mystery. There is always some of that, I feel, in historical romance, but I lean pretty heavy on that. So that's just the overall of the book.
All right. Excited. Take it away whenever you're ready.
All right. Maintaining an eye on the door, but trying to seem aloof at the same time, Elena caught an awkward stumble coming toward her. She barely sidestepped the man's bumbling approach, and her quick action nearly caused her to topple the whole refreshment table. Elena gave a quick sigh of relief when she only gave the table a gentle bump, setting the glasses and dishes on the table to shaking, but her solace was temporary. This gentleman, if he even warranted the title, had clearly been drinking too much before his arrival, and had almost caused the both of them to be covered in foodstuffs. Would the foolishness and bad luck of this season never end? Thankfully, the gentleman halted just short of the table, and seemed to go about his business without a care. It was Lord Finch's drunken display and her lack of action not far from her mind that gave her the courage to confront this latest buffoon. Elena refused to be forbearing with yet another fool. Usually, a person can wait until arriving at a ball to partake in libations, Elena gritted through her teeth, loud enough that she was sure the man could hear. There are always plenty supplied at these sorts of functions, if you are capable of waiting, and you run less risk of embarrassing yourself or others. The target of Elena's remark seemed to only partially acknowledge her statement, a grunt escaping him as he continued to look at the spread of snacks, finally settling on a small candied fruit and popping it unceremoniously in his mouth. Not to be ignored, Elena stomped her slippered foot in an unladylike manner. The gentleman finally turned to face her, and Elena was taken aback by the steel blue eyes that pierced her as if they were made of ice, a small cut marring his otherwise perfect brow. Pardon my uncoordinated approach, my lady. I assure you I would never tip the table and ruin your beautiful dress. The quip seemed to insult and compliment at the same time. Elena could not be sure. Elena's initial anger turned to shock as she made note of the man's crisp speech, one certainly not marred by drink. The about-face in her perception caused her words to tumble from her mouth with little thought. I was just worried that. What I mean is, the man's eyes swept the length of Elena, as if finally assessing the person before him, while he pressed her to finish her thought. What? Were you worried I was already in my cups? That I am a drunk? I assure you I just slipped a bit on the floor. I'm not usually so clumsy. There was something about the man, a challenge in his eyes maybe, that compelled Elena to speak before he could turn away. Unfortunately, she could not find the inappropriate topic, and her mouth outpaced her mind. "I am sure you have quite the story with your eye." "Pardon?" the gentleman countered, taking an ominous step toward her. Elena immediately regretted her statement, wishing to fall in upon herself as his glacial eyes once again stared at her with enough intensity to freeze her in place. Elena was taken aback by his height, finding it difficult to not tip backward to meet his eye in the crowded ballroom. He was impeccably dressed, his dark gray coat and breeches tucked into tall black boots, contrasting with a silver waistcoat, white shirt, and cravat. Elena could see that everything was expertly tailored, his coat tapering to his perfectly flat stomach, and his breeches hugging his narrow hips enough to make Elena feel color rising in her cheeks. Elena cleared her throat as she searched for her next words, coming up with only a measly reiteration of her question before remembering herself. "Your eye? I do apologize, sir. I did not mean to offend." A chuckle escaped the gentleman's lips, as if in disbelief at having to converse with her, and he promptly set her upon her heels. "Is that your idea of polite conversation?" "Yes. No, not really. It is just that it looks like it hurt," Elena stammered, standing as tall as she could manage, only barely making it to his shoulder. She refused to yield any ground, even if she could not find her voice. The man's eyes narrowed, and it felt to Elena that many moments passed before he spoke once more. "And I bet you are curious as to how I came by the injury. It seems like your curiosity got the best of your manners." Elena's disbelief at his directness caused her mouth to drop open, and she was rendered momentarily speechless. He was lecturing her. The man crossed his arms across his chest and leaned in a bit, as if to make sure she heard him. You know the saying, curiosity killed the cat. Elena felt warmth rise to the tips of her ears, and she regretted ever opening her mouth. But then she noticed a twinkle settled in his eyes as a quick chuckle escaped his lips. He was laughing at her, or the situation. Either way, his reaction perturbed her, and she snapped. "What has you so amused?" The man's voice belied the twinkle in his eyes. "Who says I am amused?" Elena started timidly before she squared her shoulders and pressed on. "I cannot say if you are or not, but it is my usual experience that laughter indicates pleasure in something." Now the gentleman let out a more full-bodied laugh. "I fear pleasure and amusement are two separate concepts, at least in my mind." Elena's brow furrowed as she mulled his last statement. The man's eyes darkened as they stood in silence, and Elena's confusion deepened. Elena opened her mouth, but she was stayed by a familiar voice. "Yoo-hoo, Elena, darling. I simply must introduce you to someone." Elena saw her mother fast approaching, her rich amethyst gown shimmering as she made her way through the crowd. She was joined by a stately lady, petite with lustrous ebony hair and alabaster skin, setting off her stylish silver dress. She glanced back at the gentleman and saw he was calmly waiting as if to continue their repartee, or possibly just to observe the upcoming introduction. Alas, it was time to meet the new arrivals, and she plastered a pinched smile on her face. "Mother, how delightful of you to join me. I thought you would be enjoying your time with the other chaperones." "My dear, as the ballroom got more crowded, you appeared as though you might be swallowed up at any moment." Charlotte looked askance at the gentleman. "Not to mention, I have met the most wonderful and interesting woman, and I thought I should introduce you." Turning to her new companion, Elena's mother continued, "This is the Dowager Duchess of Ashford." Elena felt a flicker of disbelief cross her face, but quickly bowed her head and executed a graceful curtsy, hoping her quick motion covered her face and emotions. How had her mother even found the Dowager at the ball, let alone garnered an introduction? "It is wonderful to make your acquaintance, Your Grace." The Dowager quickly took both of Elena's hands in her own, stepping closer and leaning in as if they were old friends. "Please, my dear, as I have already told your mother, you must call me Eleanor. I am not one to stand on ceremony with people as long as I like them. Your mother and I were just getting equally bored sitting with the old biddies over there, and we struck up a conversation. I just had to meet her daughter as well." "As you wish, Eleanor. I would be honored if you would do the same. Please call me Elena." "Your mother tells me your initial foray into society has been eventful. Lord Finch making such a fool of himself, and his sister egging him on like that. There are some in society whose manners are lacking." Eleanor paused, giving Charlotte and then Elena an exasperated look. Elena heard a scoff from the man behind her and felt insulted once more that he would include her in that group of ill-mannered lackwits. It was all she could do not to turn and glare at the gentleman. Without giving Elena or Charlotte time to respond, Eleanor continued, "Never fear, my dear. After the first few weeks of the season, gentlemen with more decorum tend to grace us, and the riffraff find themselves at the gaming tables instead of the ballroom." Elena was about to respond when, unexpectedly, the Dowager Duchess peered past her and addressed the gentleman who had been Elena's verbal sparring partner. "Christopher, where is my son off to? I had expected you both to be strutting around the ballroom together like a pair of peacocks." Elena's eyes widened as she suppressed a groan of embarrassment. She had been sparring with the Duke of Ashford's friend? "How rude of me," Eleanor quickly course-corrected. "Elena, I know you and Christopher were speaking when your mother and I joined you, but I doubt you have been properly introduced. Christopher is not one for such formalities. May I present Christopher, the Marquis of Rochester. Christopher, this is Lady Elena St. Clair, the Earl of Norwich's daughter, newly arrived from their country seat for the season." Elena was glad the lighting in the ballroom was low because her discomfiture was acute. Elena felt a raw heat suffuse her whole body, hidden beneath the midnight hem of her dress all the way to the crown of her head. She hoped the Marquis did not notice. It would not do to have him report back to the Duke on her actions. Her skin tingled with embarrassment as she met Christopher's eyes to acknowledge the introduction. What a blunder! This man was the Duke's friend, and they had been practically at each other's throats. "Nice to make your formal acquaintance, my lady," Christopher rejoined. "And you as well, my lord." Elena choked out what she hoped to be a graceful response. Turning his attention back to the Dowager Duchess, Christopher answered her earlier question. "Eleanor, your son left me to fend for myself just after we arrived. I am sure he will be with us shortly." Christopher finished his answer and moved his regard back to Elena. Still embarrassed by their unfinished argument, Elena had trouble finding her tongue. Just when she thought she might burst from mortification and rattle off something about how the weather had been so pleasant today, there was a commotion to her right. A tall, dark-haired man approached through the crowd, his all-black ensemble only broken by his white shirt and cravat, tailored to show his tall and slim frame. Based on the amount of attention he attracted just by walking through the crowd, Elena guessed him to be the Duke of Ashford. When he quickly approached the Dowager Duchess, placing a peck on her cheek, any remaining doubt was erased. "Mother, how pleasant to see you at this ball. You should have told me you were going to be here. I would have escorted you." A quick nod to Christopher and a sheepish smile seemed to convey an apology, though Elena could not fathom for what. "Nonsense, darling. I can make my own way to these events. How am I to catch up on the latest happenings if I am linked to you all evening?" Eleanor seemed like she would have been tickled by the Duke's escort, but Elena had little time to consider this. "May I present to you Lady Elena, the daughter of the Earl of Norwich, and her mother, the Countess of Norwich." The Dowager motioned to both Elena and her mother. The Duke of Ashford's eyes lit up as he casually swept Elena's person. Elena felt herself blush at his perusal and was captured by his rakish smile. The Duke's height rivaled that of the Marquis, and Elena found her eyes drawn to both.
Ooh, what a meet cute. How will shake shoes?
I know, it's hard, right?
I've got lots of questions for you, but first we're going to take a quick break for our sponsors.
Do you have a favorite bookstore? Mine is Q and Willow. I was one of their original Kickstarter backers, and I am always thrilled to have an excuse to go to Kew Gardens here in Queens to see what is new. Since I don't get there as much as I wish I did, I also love to use bookshop.org to support them. Bookshop.org is an online bookstore of print and ebooks. The magical thing is that when you check out, you get to choose a bookstore from their partners, and a portion of your purchase goes straight into that bookstore's wallet. When I need to order a research book, you can bet I'm putting it towards the Q and Willow account. The Historical Romance Sampler is a proud affiliate of bookshop.org, which means if you make a purchase there after following the link in my link tree, the podcast also gets a slice of that money, which helps me do things like pay for my editing software. Check out my link tree for official shopping lists of books featured on each season of the show, and go book shopping to support your favorite indie bookstore and maybe your favorite indie historical romance podcast. Do you love to read with your ears?
I've got you covered. The Historical Romance Sampler is an official affiliate of Libro.fm, the audiobook store where every dollar you spend helps support indie bookstores. They've got a great selection of romance audiobooks that you can purchase or listen to with credits as part of a monthly subscription. Even better, I've created custom playlists featuring the Libro.fm titles that you heard here first on the Historical Romance Sampler. Head on over via the link in my bio to shop the playlists. And if you're signing up for the first time, use code HISTORICAL for an extra book credit. I'm back with R.K. Harrington, who just read from her debut historical romance, Kindred Schemes. There is a lot in this scene that was really speaking to me and resonating with the excitement of a classic historical romance, like the social awkwardness and anxiety and pressure that Elena feels to be perfectly performing and saying the wrong thing when she's really trying to do the right thing. And then also there was an element of like actual physical space territory war between her and Christopher. Like she first set the table vibrating and then he's encroaching on her space and all of that. It felt like so quintessential ballroom in such a lovely way. Is that what drew you to write this particular story? And do you feel that the ballroom scene for you is a really important part of historical romance?
So I can answer the second part first. I think absolutely. You have to have at least one or two like really kind of key ballroom scenes that where you can see the whole thing, the candles and the tables and everybody in their amazing gowns and dress. And then what drew me to write it is I have been reading historical romances, and though I read Jane Austen, and it just really is one of those things like you just feel like I love the dancing scenes. I love the social aspect of it, like you said, where they're trying to do the right thing. They're these young people discovering themselves while also being very judged by society. And I think it lends itself to a lot of funny encounters. And however much I love the mystery, I also like a little bit of humor infused in there. And I'd say just by the nature of the time period and kind of the wealth of inspiration that's out there, that was what drew me to write this story.
Yeah. Who are some of the authors that you hope to have your work compared to?
Ooh, that's a great question. When I started reading historical romance, I started with Kathleen Woodwess, and so somebody that my mom had read growing up. And I always strive to that her level of story and how deep you feel what the characters feel. So obviously I would love to be compared to her. A couple others would be Julia Quinn. I really do the wittiness of Jane Austen, even though it's not a modern Regency, but I she always has these like amazing quips and lines. And so when I'm writing, I'm trying to find that type of voice. So those are just a few.
Yeah. Do you feel that humor comes, are you pulled into a scene being like, oh, this would be funny, let me write that? I ask that because I don't think I'm a funny writer. And so I'm often like, "Ugh, I should really work a joke into this." And then I'm like, what's funny? So how do you approach writing humor?
Oh gosh. So this is gonna sound maybe a little odd. I feel like I've had this conversation with some people, like when I've gone to writers' conferences. But do you know like the conversations you have during the day, and then you go back and you're like revisiting those conversations? Like usually, at least for me, like I'll be like in the shower or washing the dishes or doing something benign. And I'm like, oh, if I'd have said that, it would have been funny.
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily go in thinking, oh, I'm going to write this funny scene. I let the dialogue take its way through. And typically, I will, you know this, you rewrite this dialogue many times until it's like that crisp, witty, like banter back and forth. And I just hope that the humor doesn't fall flat because everybody's got their own sense of it. And yes, I guess I don't really typically think of it as writing a joke. I just really take real life and try to put it into a book, or at least how I would prefer real life to be if I was super witty all the time.
Yes, yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. That's very interesting. And what about as you approached writing your So you read historical romance since a young age, and then you decided to start writing it. What was your approach to researching the world, and how was it to transition from being a reader to writing it?
Ooh, so I think of research. So obviously, there's a wealth of books out there that are like almost you're taking them in and you're making this pattern recognition so that when you're a reader, you can recognize the kind of the way society interacts, or especially if you're talking modern Regency, it's not exactly precise with all the rules. And so that is a largely, obviously, like we do Google searches of like how to address people and how to do this thing. But largely, I'm using my brain as this big pattern recognition piece of software where I'm saying, I've read all these books. And now I'm trying to make something that has me in it, but it matches the genre. And maybe I'll say this, when I first started this book, I tried to have an outline. I wrote what the scenes were going to be and all my chapters. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I think as I started writing, I was like, no, I really have to let the characters take me where they want to take me. And that's when I really hit my stride as far as like the writing was concerned. So research wise, like I said, it's mostly just the what I've been reading. And then the transition from reader to writer has been interesting. I definitely read with a different eye now, where I'm like, oh, I would have done this or I would have done that. But I will say, and I don't know if you remember these books, but like they used to have, they probably still have them, where like young adult books have pick your own ending, like the novels. Oh, and I would read all of the endings because I was like, I need to know. And so now I'm just constantly thinking of, oh, how would I write this ending differently as like an idea for a story I might write in the future? Not like a critique, but of a, oh, this would be a cool idea if I had this alternate ending.
Yeah, that's cool. I understand that. I often get inspired. If I'm in the right headset, I can get inspired
Yeah.
by other historical romance. And so you were talking about pattern recognition. So in case anyone missed it in the bio, you're an engineer.
Yes.
How
Absolutely.
does it feel to spend your day job engineering and then to explore this writing side? Does it feel like two different parts of your brain, or does it actually feel cohesive?
I would say it feels cohesive. And the reason I would say that, so I'm an engineer that does like far out technology, so research and development. And truly you're trying to like finding a solution to a problem that you have to define is actually a very creative process. I know you can look at textbooks and have equations and physics does have its limits, but generally speaking, it is a creative process to take a problem and to find it all the way through the solution. Now, what I will say at the end of the day, when I'm done looking at a computer screen, it is very nice for me to come in, especially if I'm writing a first draft, write like longhand. That's definitely a refreshing aspect of it. And I have really embraced the pants. I really thought I would have to plan a lot more, and I'm like, nope, I just pants. And if I rewrite it, then I have to rewrite it. But that's the nice part is I don't have to, doesn't, it's not an equation. It's a guide, maybe.
Y- And it's not limited by physics. You could
No.
have physically impossible things happen.
It's true. It's true.
So wait, you write your first draft longhand?
I do. Okay, so for Kindred Schemes, again, I was feeling out my process and I was like, I just type fast, so I'll type it. So I wrote the first probably 10 chapters on a computer. And I was like looking at an outline and following the outline. And then I was sitting somewhere and I didn't have access to my computer. And I was like, I have this scene. I need to write it. And I grabbed some paper and I started writing. And I was like, wow, that was a lot more fun. So then I wrote the rest of the book longhand and I haven't looked back. I've even started book two, the Scheme series, longhand. And then because I was typing, it definitely had a different feel. So I spent a lot of time editing and rewriting kind of the first half to really make it match the second.
Oh, that's so interesting. And so then once you have the draft in longhand, like, are you writing on actual paper, or are you using one of those cool technology things that like transfers it into a PDF for you?
I am actually writing in like a composition notebook. So
Wow. So then do you type it up?
my husband types it up. He's very, very
Oh.
sweet.
I love that because back in the day, there are so many stories of like famous male novelists like Nabokov who like their wives were the ones typing up their novels and helping edit them, and the wives never got credit. You are flipping that
Yeah.
gender stereotype.
He's also much faster at typing, so it does make sense.
Yeah. And so you're working on book two. Have you figured out what hooks you into a story idea or even just like a character or a scene level?
I definitely get really hooked into the characters because I feel like everything flows outward from that. If I really understand who those characters are, and sometimes I have to be writing them a long time, like I said, sometimes I'll go back and be like, no, they wouldn't do that. I go back and rewrite the scene. But I think if you know the characters really well, then the plot comes from that, right? It's like the natural course of events. So it's really what gets me hooked in to when I'm writing, gets me in the zone. As far as getting hooked into a story idea, I actually really like to think of the mystery first and then smushing that together as to like how you might put a love story inside of it. Now, the love story is still the kind of main thing, but I think you can put a love story in lots of different scenarios. And so the mystery is the one where I'm like, okay, I think I know how all the pieces fit together. Now I can start writing it.
Yeah, so we haven't even talked about the mystery side of it. Not being a plotter, how much of the mystery do you know? Do you know the whodunit side of it when you begin writing?
For this one, I don't think I did. I think it like took me to like chapter 13, which is definitely like the halfway mark of being like, oh yeah, no, this is how it's gonna all come together. However, I will say for book two, because some of the mystery aspects are a continuation of book one, I definitely had more of an idea of, okay, this is the bad guy, this is how it's gonna end. But really the reactions and the situations that and that minute level are definitely different as I go and write them.
Cool. I think it's a good time to move to love it or leave it. Do you love it or leave it? Protagonists meet in the first 10% of the story.
Oh, absolutely love it. I think it has to be there.
Do you love it or leave it? Dual point of view narration.
I really enjoy it. And the reason being is I feel like I like to have at least in the books I write, the like the male point of view. I really like to explore that, the sensitivity of it, the vulnerability of it. And so yes, absolutely. I like to be in both heads.
All right. Do you love it or leave it? Third person, past tense.
Love it. I actually don't know if I'd be able to write in another way, and I love reading it. So absolutely.
Do you love it or leave it? The third act, dark moment.
So this one for me, maybe because I always like stories that really combine the mystery and the romance piece of it. I almost like my dark moment to be external, like something that the couple has to overcome together. It and I do this with any romance novel that I read where they have a third act breakup, like it definitely gets you, right? Like you're like you feel it. But it almost is so nerve-wracking. I don't necessarily like to write it, if that makes sense.
Yes, I sometimes am in a very dark place when I have to write the
Yeah,
dark
you feel
moments.
your character's pain, right?
Yeah. All right. Do you love it or leave it? Always end with an epilogue.
Ooh, I feel like that's very book dependent. So this one ends in epilogue, and then I don't think the second book does. So it's 50-50 for me on that one.
All right. Do you love it or leave it? Always share your research in the author's note.
So back to my research process, I think if a story is really based on a specific event or maybe it's centered around a historical figure, absolutely. I'm that person that likes to go to the author's note, read it, go Google, pick out the pieces, be like, oh man, it was this person and this is how it's similar and these are the things they had to extract. They didn't have letters or something, so they had to extract what the person's inner thoughts might be. But for kind of costume drama, I'm like, nah, I don't really need it. I'm just here for the characters and the feel. I just want it to feel like the right time frame and for me to see it in my head.
All right. And are there any other rules I didn't ask about that you like to break?
So I'm sure I have some because I am a pantser like through and through, but I think I maybe, and this maybe not be a rule, is right, there's the elements of plot and like the points you have to hit for the story to feel well paced. I let my heart decide and then I go back and I check my work. So I don't really think about it beforehand, but I think instinct usually gets me most of the way there.
Yeah. Awesome. RK, thank you so much for coming on and sharing Kindred Schemes with us. Where can listeners find you and your books?
All right. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, you can find me on my website, rkharrington.com. I send out a newsletter once a month, sometimes mid-month if I have something really exciting to share. I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. RK Harrington Author is my at name. And then to buy my books, so I'm publishing through Amazon and self-publishing through Ingram Spark. So they're available at all your major retailers. You can find an ebook Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and then Apple Books. And then you can find hardcover or softcover. I have two versions of the softcover, both standard and large print, and you can find those on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Nice. And if it's in Ingram Spark, that means you can ask your local bookstore to find it and also your library to purchase it for you too.
Yes. Very true.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yes, thank you, Katherine. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
That's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the Historical Romance Sampler wherever you listen, and follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Until next week, happy reading!